Om Namo Narayana. I'm going to do the Gita verses. I don't want to waste time. Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha Harihi Om. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Kratitam Puranam Nina Madhye Mahabharatam अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवैद्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। वसु वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं भीष्मद्रोणतटा च यत्र तचला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनि कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोतीर्णः खलु पाण्डवैरणनदि कैवर्तककेशवः पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटम् नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितम् लोके सज्जन षट्पदे वेदमानं मुदा भारत पंकजं कलिमल प्रध्वंसि न श्रेयसे मुखं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्र रुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ज्ञानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः। Welcome. This is going to be a different type of a class. Okay, it's all internet research stuff. I'm not a psychologist or anything. So, but I thought it would be interesting to do because we are in this topic of samatvam, right? Equanimity of mind. So I had sent you a small chart showing what is it that contributes to equanimity of mind and what doesn't, you know. And one of the things I'd written there was tamas, is these unhelpful thinking styles. So it does not promote objectivity, or it does not promote samatva. Objectivity is seeing things as they are. Okay? You're not adding on to them anything, or you're not taking away from them anything. You just see things as they are. Actually, it means good viveka is there for the person. The person is able to see. So now let's start. I'm going to share my screen. Oh goodness, I forgot. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to share the screen and then we will see. Okay. So bear with me. There could be some mistakes. Okay. Whiteboard. Where's that? Oh dear. Acha, I should have had my application Select a window or an application that you want to share. My application is not on. Let me see. I'll put this. I'll put it in. Yeah, I'll turn on my application. Okay, just one sec. Okay, give me a second while I try to understand this. Okay, now I think I should be able to manage this. Okay. Okay. People waiting in the room. Let them all come. Okay, admit. Admit. Now I want to go to share screen. So it says this. Okay, here we go. Okay, fine. Okay, so here we launch into this thing called unhelpful thinking styles. So let's look at the next slide. So we are seeing here that when a person experiences some unpleasant emotion, they may have sadness. Can you make out people who have got very, who are on a computer will be able to see clearly. But people who are not on computer will, if it's only a monitor, then it's difficult to see. So when a person experiences an unpleasant emotion, that means an emotion is usually preceded by one or more unhelpful thoughts.
Rina?
So these thoughts can be unhelpful in nature and they influence our emotions. When it influences our emotion, then naturally drops us of samatva. So, and all of us are going to experience these kind of unhelpful thoughts to some degree. But supposing a person is doing this very automatically and consistently, these people would come in time. Okay, when people are when people do this automatically and consistently, then these kind of thoughts, their thought patterns, they lead to some kind of emotional distress. So in this presentation, we are going to see some examples of what we are calling as unhelpful thinking styles or thinking habits also you can call it. Okay. And as we go through them, some of you may begin to notice some unhelpful thoughts that either you or people that you know, they use. So when a person experiences an unhelpful emotion, for example, say, uh, you know, anxiety, then it is usually preceded by unhelpful self-statements regarding oneself and lot of thoughts. So there's a pattern to it, and that pattern is what we are calling as unhelpful thinking styles. So they are the ways in which our thoughts are becoming biased. But we are conscious beings. Constantly we are interpreting our world around. We're trying to make sense of what it is, how it is. So sometimes what happens, our brain takes shortcuts. And these shortcuts generate results which are not totally accurate. Okay. So we have different, different kind of shortcuts that we take. And they result in different kinds of distortions in our thinking. In Vedanta, we need objective, a person who is objective. Okay. So what happens because of these shortcuts in our thinking, we can jump to the worst possible conclusion, or we can blame ourselves for things that are not our fault. Okay. So these kind of thinking distortions, they're called as distortions, they happen automatically. We don't mean to think like that, you know. It's not our fault really. But our purushartha is what? To notice them. When we notice them, we learn. We learn how to notice them, and we learn how to challenge them. Then they can have a big effect on our mood and on our lives. So this particular modality which I'm talking about belongs to what is called as cognitive behavior therapy. So what we notice is it's automatic, you know, and often we are not aware of it. हमें पता ही नहीं होता इसके बारे में. So when a person consistently and constantly uses, okay, some of these thinking habits or styles, we can experience a lot of emotional distress. There's no hard and fast rules. I'm not going to do many. I'm going to do only a few today. There are no hard and fast categories. It's just so that we get familiar and we are able to understand. So they may sound similar to one another. So don't think, you know, it's totally normal. One of them has this. आवाज नहीं आ रही है? अरे यार, भाई आवाज आ रही है तो प्लीज.
आ रही है.
मैं सबको म्यूट करती हूँ क्योंकि ये बहुत बड़ी डिस्टरबेंस होती है ना बीच में. ओके ओके ओके. So it's very common and it's normal and it's not our fault. These things should be understood. नहीं तो we human beings know we take a very little to fault ourselves. But what happens is they rob us of our samatva. They rob us of our objectivity. They interfere with our capacity for viveka. So we need to look into this. Okay? So once we can identify some of the unhelpful thinking patterns, then we can start to notice them. And usually they will occur before and during some distressing, unpleasant situation. So if you can notice it, then you can learn how to challenge it. Because our emotions follow from our thinking pattern only. Okay. So what happens when we are under stress, you know, we are driven by our emotions, okay, or our interpretations, opinions or interpretations. And this becomes a vicious cycle. Our interpretation will make us get an emotion, which will reinforce the interpretation, which will give us an emotion, which will reinforce the whole thing. So our emotions, they strengthen our interpretations and opinions, which in turn intensify the emotions. Okay? So what happens? This leads to very impulsive behavior and very unhelpful long-term consequences. Okay? So what we need to focus on is facts. That's where we need to focus, because facts help us to make changes. If we react, you know, because of our opinion or our interpretation, then it upsets us. So if we look at the facts, so, you know, we can ask ourselves this question. When we are reacting a lot, is this a fact or is it an opinion? Is it my interpretation? Let's look at, you know, what happens with facts. Facts means they have got evidence They are based upon evidence, solid evidence, So there is evidence to support its truth. Whereas in the case of interpretation or opinion, it's a personal view. And in the case of this fact, it's undisputed because it's evident, it's a fact. Whereas when it's an interpretation, then it's something you can argue about. If it's a fact, then it is driven by your buddhi, by rational thinking. Whereas if it is an opinion, it is driven by your emotion. So fact belongs to your buddhi, whereas opinion belongs to your heart. Okay? It's just an opinion belonging to your heart. Okay? So, it is often that our interpretations, we attach them to the facts. There is fact and there is interpretation. And what do? We attach our interpretation to the facts, and that causes us a lot of distress. The fact itself may not cause us as much distress as our interpretation does. So, there is a beautiful modality called non-violent communication. And in it has got 4 steps, observation. So he makes you observe so that you are able to recognize what is fact and what is interpretation. So learning to observe impartially. And we do that in our meditations, no? We observe our thoughts impartially. Okay. So supposing, you are used to reading a newspaper, whatever your new brand of newspaper is. Now you decide to change your newspaper, or you decide to read another newspaper. When you read that other newspaper and you look at the headlines, then you feel that no, this is not, it's biased in some way. Maybe it's a journalist's opinion or editor's opinion or something. So you look at the headline and you ask, is this a fact or is it an opinion? Okay, we can do the same thing with our thoughts. Okay? So, if we identify that our thought is an interpretation, it's an opinion, then we can look for the facts. Meaning, what do we know actually about the situation? Then we can make proper choices. What to do and not to do. I will ask, yeah, he has already muted. Okay, good. Okay. So now let's look at this. So when you notice a distressing thought, ask yourself, is it a fact or is it an opinion? Is it a fact or is it an interpretation? Try to come back to the facts. Now we will start looking at some of the unhelpful thinking methods. Okay. Okay. Whoever is coming in now, please mute it. Okay? I don't want to go and keep muting people. So automatically understand and mute your this thing. So the first unhelpful style is called as mind reading. Mind reading is assuming what someone else is thinking without having much evidence for it. So if we rely too much on mind reading, then what happens? We can make a lot of mistakes about what others think about us. And that can create a lot of problem for our moods. So this mind reading can lead to depression. It can lead to anxiety, especially anxiety with relationship to relationships, social anxiety. So it's very helpful to learn to recognize when you're doing mind reading. In small doses, mind reading is okay. Sometimes we need to do it. We watch people's expression and we can come to a sort of a guess as to what is going on in their mind. No, because verbal non-verbal expression we watch, Iti. Go on, admitting people. I don't know why, Okay. So we watch. For example, you're telling something and then the person's, jaw opens. That means you interpret it as, the person is surprised. That's okay. That's fine. But it's useful also. But when we use too much of mind reading, it becomes problematic. For example, you are eating alone. Say you went to a restaurant. This can happen to, if I go to a restaurant, no, there's no partner. So I go to a restaurant alone. Then I can be thinking that, oh, everybody thinks I'm a loser because I'm alone. So this could be a interpretation. Please mute your phones, okay? Okay. Or supposing you are going for your job and usually you're always on time, but you go a few minutes late and then you think that, oh, everybody else is thinking about how I've come late. You're just imagining what others are thinking. Then, so if you engage like this in this kind of thinking, then you are going to be in big time trouble. You're going to feel very, very miserable. So what you do when you find that your mind reading is, you ask yourself, okay, this is challenging yourself. Am I assuming I know what others are thinking? How do I know what they think? Have they told me this? Do I have any evidence for the thoughts? Or am I just guessing? Am I able to read their minds? Okay. So I can discover that these are my own thoughts. They are not the other person's thoughts. Is there any other more balanced way of looking at it? Okay? It could be one way I look at this. So this was the mind reading style that we saw. Okay. Whoever comes in, please mute your phones or your computer or whatever. Okay. The next unhelpful style is called as predicting. Sometimes it's also called as fortune telling. So this is an unhelpful style, and actually technically they call it as a cognitive distortion, in which you predict a negative outcome without realistically considering what are the chances of that outcome. Not realistically considering, like you'll tend to think it's going to be bad, it's going to be bad, it's going to be bad. It's true that we have to be able to predict to some extent. Please mute your phones, please. It makes a lot of disturbance for everybody. Please mute your phones. Okay. So we do need to have a natural ability to predict somewhat, okay, what an outcome is likely to be in a given set of circumstances. A very simple one way, that supposing, I predict that if we drink the expired milk, which is smelling very foul, then we are going to get sick. It's a type of prediction only. That's useful. Or if I am headed in a plane towards Delhi, then I can predict that, yes, I'm going to reach Delhi. So to function as an adult, we make these kind of predictions. It's required. It's a necessary skill. But it becomes a distortion of our thinking when we assume that some event or events will end badly for us, or we will fail at something, or we will be in danger. And this is more as an assumption rather than as an educated guess, Maybe if you knew all the facts, lot of facts, and then you made this kind of guess, it would be okay. For example, today in India, COVID going at a terrific rate. So I can make an educated guess that there is a good chance that I can get COVID if I fly down somewhere. It would be a fairly educated guess. It is. That's because I've looked at all the facts, so I can do that. But when we are talking about this as a unhelpful thinking style, it means that it is not an accurate assessment based on evidence. Rather, it's a global assumption without really looking at what the real odds are. Some person may apply for the job, give the interview, and then say, I'm not going to get the job. It could be a great example, of this predicting. Because the person doesn't know all the factors which are involved in whether they are going to get the job. Does the person know who the competitors are? Does he know what their experience is? Does he know that their goals match up better than his own? Does he know if their personality was a better fit with the interviewer, etc.? So usually we have very little idea of these kind of factors. So to assume over there that no, I'm not going to get a job means you're doing so without considering the majority of the evidence. Another example, my partner will get fed up with me and leave. Assumption. We're assuming what's going to happen in the future. So we need to challenge it. That's the ask yourself, You ask yourself, how can you be certain that this is inevitable? Are you able to see into the future? Can you predict the weather for tomorrow or the lottery numbers which are going to come out this week? You can't. Then how can you make all the other predictions, Siti? Is there any way to test out the predictions you're making? Am I thinking that I can predict the future? How likely is it to really happen? I actually have a close friend, I have a friend who is in a depression. And she has a tendency to do this all the time. Oh, everything is going to fall apart. This is Kali Yuga. Everything is falling apart. You can see it everywhere. There is entropy everywhere. So this problem is there, predicting the future. Okay. So we saw that. Ask yourself, okay, am I thinking that I can predict the future? How likely is it that it might really happen? Okay, this is a real serious one, mental filter. It's negative filtering. Positive filtering is not as bad, but negative is really dangerous. It's very common, unhealthy thinking style. And many of us do it from time to time. So what do? We filter out all the positive information about a specific situation and we allow in only the negative information. It's as though we put a screen in our brain, a filter in our brain. So negative filtering means focusing only on negative things and discounting the positive things. Now, supposing you're a person who is always on time with deadlines, but once you're late, then what do you think? Oh, I'm incompetent. Another example, generally you get A or B in your class. But supposing once you got a lower grade, okay, on any one project or assignment, then you think that, oh no, I am very stupid. So this is all negative filtering. I had one, I told you all about it in a Gita class. This girl in my school who was a topper, always a topper. And once she was not topper, she came, I think, third or fourth in the class. And her parents were the same. They also had this kind of filtering. So they told her it's terrible that she got this. She's come third or fourth in class, etc., etc. And they used to leave her to study while they would go out for some function, taking the brother with them. And she was told to study. This girl was already, 15, 6, maybe 15 years old. And she committed suicide because she thought she was so terrible. Okay. Okay. So, negative filtering usually accompanies unrealistic high expectations. So, you're anticipating always doing something very well or doing something perfectly, you know. So, there's a lot of perfectionism here. So, what happens? All your efforts are judged against perfection. And then if you reach it, then you say, no, it's what is expected anyway. But if you fall short occasionally, you didn't reach up to your standard, then you ignore all your past successes and you focus entirely on the few instances where you're not successful. And so this kind of thinking can be very, very harmful because you're focusing only on the negative things. And naturally, what is it going to lead to? It's going to lead to depression. It's going to lead to low self-esteem and unhealthy pessimism. So people get caught in a cycle of negative filtering, that causes very bad mood, which causes more negative filtering, which causes bad mood eating. So this is one of the main things we see of people who have depression. There is a lot of negative filtering for them. So it's very important. Identifying negative filtering is a very, very important portion of tackling depression. So what is the key thing to do? To ask yourself, what is the actual evidence here? Okay? So look around for the instances when things are not bad. Things to be grateful for. Ask yourself if other people would come to the same conclusion in the given circumstances. So I have this friend, she has that other problem and this mental filter is also there. She's really very brilliant. She's written a beautiful book. Now she's got a brain condition because there's been brain injury there and she's under a lot of medication. So there's a brain condition where she feels she's under a heavy fog. At that time, her mind sort of gets paralyzed, it doesn't move, she feels heavy. And therefore, what happens is she has a tendency to not see the fact, of all her past successes, and she thinks I'm stupid and I'm dumb and I'm no good. And she hits herself very badly. She judges herself very badly. It's very important. Am I noticing only the bad stuff? Am I filtering out the positives? Am I wearing very gloomy glasses? Right? So it's very important to ask these questions. What am I filtering out? What am I sieving out? What is more realistic? I should be able to say that. Okay. Now, I don't know how many minutes. Okay, I have a few more minutes. This will show me I have 6 more minutes. Okay. And even if it goes off suddenly, you come back on the same link. Okay. I'm not going to do all of them today. Just doing 2 more now. This one, I think it's a human problem. Look at that. This fellow, I don't know what he is. He's some kind of a sweet only. He says, those guys are looking much cooler than I am. Oh God. So comparing yourself to others is dumb. So anyway, so this is an art which is unique to human beings. the art of comparison. It's highly prevalent, you know. Compare and despair. Seeing only the good and positive aspects in others and comparing ourselves negatively against them. I don't think, you know, any of us do this too much. And the danger of this despair, you compare and despair thinking is very pervasive. It's like a weed. It can quickly spread, you know, it gets rooted. Something we can do without. It gets rooted in our thinking. It contributes a lot to anxiety, to depression, to jealousy, to self-criticism, to lack of self-worth. And it very rapidly, it undermines our self-confidence. So a person will say, everybody else is doing fine, but I'm not doing well. It is. That time you have to ask yourself, am I doing that compare and despair thing now that we come to know, you know, that such a thing is there? Am I doing this? I'm comparing and then despairing over myself. It's not easy to overcome this, okay? Because it can be very ingrained in us. So the first step is to catch ourselves, that become aware and catch ourselves that I'm doing this comparing and despairing. You can write down these thoughts if they are there before deciding how you will treat them. So what happens is this comparing and despairing goes along with negative filtering. And so it seems to confirm our worst ideas about ourselves. So if I think that I'm a very boring person, okay, some people may think I am a very boring person. Once you believe that you are a boring person, then it's as though you've got a radar which is looking for this, you know, that I am a boring person, looking for anything. So it will look at situations and it will judge the situation in terms of that conclusion. It's a prejudice against yourself. That we can't do. Our brains are wired this way. Human brains, sometimes they are wired that way. So we have to pay more attention to what we think is our weakness. More attention, okay? What happens is, no, we pay more attention to what we think is our weakness. And we compare and rate ourselves negatively against others. So what should we have to do? We have to take a more balanced view. To make a very conscious effort to take a more balanced view. So sometimes, you know, people praise us. People give us compliments. They say something positive about us. We will pretend we didn't hear it. So now we have to allow ourselves to hear it. It's okay. Let it come in. So take on board if you get compliments. Acknowledge what is positive about you. Okay. And then you can, like that, you begin to get a more balanced view. You know, for people who do this, actually, it becomes very difficult for them. They will say that, oh no, that person praised me. No, it doesn't count. No, they said it only to be kind. They didn't actually mean it, you know. But this is only our mind trying to defend its own prejudice against itself, if it's ingrained inside it. So what we need to understand about all of this, as these are only vrittis, they are thoughts, and we can let them go. We should let them go. And we need to learn to let them go. So, you know, sometimes the meditation, I don't know if I've done that with you all, I've done it with the Mandukya group, where we have meditations, where we just watch, you know, our thoughts. Okay. And learn to be very kind and compassionate with yourself. Okay? It's going to go off in less than a minute now. So I'm going to stop now and come back, okay, with another this thing, because I have only one more small thing to do. Come back on the same link. I'm ending this now.